All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and this time we're tackling something that's always fascinated me, the English language.
Yeah, it's such a rich and complex system, right? And it's constantly evolving.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
think about all the words, slang idioms. The list goes on, and each one tells us something about how we communicate, and even about our culture.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be exploring today. Some of the more colorful and perhaps unexpected corners of the English language. We've got some really interesting examples lined up that I think you'll find fascinating.
Oh, I'm sure I will. So what exactly are we diving into today?
Well, we're going to take a close look at four specific terms: discombobulate, have a whale of a time off the hook, and let's see, crack on. And we're not just going to define them, we're going to dig a little deeper into their origins, their nuances, and what they reveal about the English language as a whole.
Sounds good to me. Let's crack on.
Huh, I see what you did there. But seriously, discombobulate is a great place to start. I mean, just say the word out loud. It's like the sound itself embodies the meaning.
Discombobulate. It does have a sort of chaotic ring to it, doesn't it? But for those who might not be familiar, what does it actually mean?
Well, it means to bewilder or upset someone, to kind of throw them off balance and leave them in a state of confusion.
So like if I said, the sudden change in plans completely discombobulated me.
Exactly. You'd be expressing that feeling of being flustered, disoriented, thrown into a bit of a tizzy.
A tizzy, I love that word.
Hmm.
It perfectly captures that sense of being discombobulated.
It does. And it's interesting to note that discombobulate is a relatively recent addition to the English language. It's thought to have originated in the U.S. sometime in the 1800s.
Really? That recent? I always thought it was some sort of old Shakespearean word or something.
Nope. In fact, some sources suggest that it might have been a playful combination of other similar sounding words, just a bit of linguistic creativity.
So someone just made it up and it stuck. That's amazing. I like that.
It is rather remarkable, and it speaks to the fact that language is not static. It's constantly being shaped and reshaped by the people who use it.
Okay, so let's move on to our next term. Have a whale of a time. Now, this one definitely sounds a lot more fun than being discombobulated.
It certainly does. When you say you had a whale of a time, you're basically saying you had an absolutely fantastic time, an incredibly enjoyable experience.
Like if you went to a concert and it was just mind-blowingly good, you could say, I had a whale of a time.
Precisely. It implies a high level of enjoyment, a really memorable and exciting experience. And the imagery of the whale is key here.
How so?
Well, whales are massive creatures, right? So using whale in this idiom emphasizes the sheer scale of the enjoyment. It's not just a little bit of fun, it's a huge amount of fun.
Oh, I see. It's like saying, I had a mountain of fun or an ocean of joy.
Exactly. It magnifies the feeling. And it's likely that the idiom originated precisely because of this size connotation. The idea of something being as big and grand as a whale.
I can definitely see that. And it's a much more evocative way of expressing yourself than just saying, I had fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It adds a certain flair and a touch of humor. And that brings us to our next term, off the hook. Now, this one is particularly interesting because it actually has two distinct meanings.
Oh, do tell.
So originally, off the hook was slang for being free from trouble or obligation. Like you managed to escape a difficult situation.
Like if you were accused of something, but then evidence emerged proving your innocence, you could say you were off the hook.
Exactly. That sense of relief, of being cleared of blame, that's the original meaning. And the imagery likely comes from the idea of a fish being freed from a hook, escaping capture.
Oh, I can totally see that. But you said there's another meaning.
There is. More recently, off the hook has also come to mean something that's exceptionally good or exciting.
Really? So you could say something like, that party was off the hook.
Exactly. And in this context, it means the party was wild, amazing, truly memorable.
Wow. So the same phrase can mean both escaping something bad and experiencing something amazing. That's wild.
It is. And it shows how slang can evolve over time, how meanings can shift and sometimes even flip. That intensity of feeling, whether positive or negative, can get attached to a single phrase.
That's fascinating. And it's definitely good to be aware of both meanings so you don't accidentally tell someone their fantastic party was a disaster.
Haha, right. Context is key. But speaking of context, let's move on to our final term, crack on. Now, this one is a bit more specific to British English.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely heard that one before, but never really thought about what it meant exactly.
Well, crack on is what we call a phrasal verb, which is basically a verb combined with another word like a preposition or adverb to create a new meaning. And in this case, it means to continue doing something with energy and determination.
So if you're working on a project and someone says, let's crack on, they're basically saying, let's keep going and get this done.
Precisely. It implies a sense of momentum of not letting anything hold you back.
I can see that. And it seems like that idea of breaking through is embedded in the phrase itself.
Yeah, the exact origin is a bit unclear, but that sense of forceful continuation is definitely there. It's like you're cracking through any obstacles in your path.
Makes sense. And it's a much more concise way of saying something like, let's push forward with determination.
Exactly. It has that sort of can-do attitude to it, and it's a great example of how phrasal verbs can add a level of nuance and expressiveness to the English language.
So we've covered quite a bit of ground today. Discombobulate, have a whale of a time, off the hook, and crack on. And what's really struck me is how each of these terms, whether it's a single word or a phrase, reveals something about the English language as a whole.
Absolutely. They show us how language is constantly evolving, how it's influenced by culture and history, and how even seemingly simple words can have hidden depths.
Right. And for anyone listening who's learning English, I think it's important to remember that it's not just about memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's about exploring the richness and the quirkiness of the language.
Exactly. Embrace the idioms, the slang, the playful expressions. That's where you'll find the real personality of English. And don't be afraid to get a little discombobulated along the way. It's all part of the fun.
And when you find something that interests you, you just crack on and learn more about it. You might be surprised at what you discover.
And on that note, here's a final thought to leave you with. As you go about your day, pay attention to the words and phrases you use, the ones that seem so ordinary. Could they also have surprising origins or hidden meanings that reflect our culture and how we communicate? It's a fascinating journey of discovery and one that's well worth taking.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, have a whale of a time doing it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.